Well, we're here having another tech talk with Paul and Al, and he's working on an absolutely huge stereo. So let's see what Paul's up to working on this absolutely huge receiver. My God, Paul, what is that thing?
This is a Sansui. Let me see. Get the numbers out here. QRX 8001 Sansui 4-channel receiver. Big, heavy thing.
Is that like the biggest they ever made?
Probably. Big out heat sink, all metal output transistors. This thing is built.
Look at that! Look at that power transformer.
Yeah.
And those capacitors.
Yeah, it's got the usual dirty switches, and I've got one channel missing, which is probably a switch. But the big thing it came in for, they want all the bulbs were burned out. It had these awful little glass bulbs mounted in these little rubber boots. And they want LEDs, so I have, if you get a good shot of that, I have modified this to put LEDs with a dropping resistor in the original rubber boots so that they could have LEDs behind the meters and the dial.
Wow. Because you really can't buy those bulbs anymore.
Well, you can get the bulbs and you can get the LED replacements, but they're like $5 a piece. This thing takes 5 of them. There's 2 meters, and there's 3 that light this dial from the edge. So I made these up, and then the meters. Let me turn this thing on. It really
wow, I never looked like that before.
Never. 2 grain of wheat bulbs in each of the 4-channel power indicators.
So the original bulbs didn't have that look.
No, they were light bulbs.
And they were, so that was tan looking. So they're blue now.
These are white LEDs. And of course, this was all tinted blue. And this whole dial lights up left to right from 3 LEDs on the edge. So it's very elegant. But I had to pull the backs off the meters, these little circuit boards, and modify them to have 2 LEDs in series with the proper dropping resistor. And that meant cutting some traces to get the right circuit, and then soldering it all back onto the back of the meters. So I spent 2 nights on this thing.
Well, the bulbs lasted for a while, but the LEDs should never go out.
They lasted 30 years. Well, probably 20. But these will last longer than all of us, theoretically. I like the dial on this because it's got this serpentine pattern, which just kind of tells you where you are between stations. I mean, it's quite a nice touch. And of course, I don't have a station tuned in, don't have an antenna on it. Dallas Fort Worth. But anyway, I've got a channel missing right here, and I don't know what I've done. But I dropped some solder while I was putting these meters in. I probably have bridged something on the preamp board.
Well, here's a tuner section right here.
Yeah.
And has it got the IF on it? I think it doesn't look like it.
It's here someplace.
Yeah.
I think
and this is a preamp here?
That's the power amp, and there's a 4-channel processor across here. And then the tone controls across the front, and power supply for the tuner.
Is this one of those quad receivers?
It has the synthesized SQ, yes. It's on here, it's right here, right there.
I remember they actually had phonographs, you know, 33 LP albums that had a carrier wave on them.
There was a 4-channel LP that had a, God, what was it? It wasn't 19K, it was way the heck up there. There was a pilot tone recorded on the record. And if you had the right needle and cartridge and a lightweight tone arm, you might play that record 3 or 4 times and get good 4-channel separation. But as that high frequency track wore down, you start losing your carrier and it would cut in and out. It was not a successful format. And if you ever played that record on anything but a 4-channel turntable, it was toast. I've got some still in the wrapper, but who knows what they're going to sound like. Of course, at this time we had 4-channel 8 tracks and 4-track open reel, which was neat. But mostly 4-track was a fad. This one you can put in 2-channel mode, and it uses all 4 power amps to double the output. So it's a mighty powerful receiver, and it sounds great.
How many watts does it have, actually?
By the looks of it, over 100 a channel.
That's a huge, and was Sansui the top of the line?
It was one of the best.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, look at the size of the heat sink across the back. And all TO3 metal output transistors. Those are just not used anymore.
And where were these made? In Japan?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that probably sold for nearly $1,000 in the 70s.
How much do you think it's worth today?
About the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is in real nice shape. The LEDs, when they're reselling these, the LEDs are a big selling factor. So this thing got all new lamps. I mean, it needed them. It's actually easier to find LEDs than it is to find light bulbs. So I forget my missing channel back. I'll get this one out and go on to the next one.
It's quite impressive.
It is quite
It had
impressive.
a big metal. It had a big wooden case with
It's
it
got
too.
a big wooden case, which is sitting here someplace. Yeah, this had everything. The thing must weigh 70 pounds. It's murder to move. But I'm very proud of the LED job. Putting them in the little rubber socket so they unplug and getting them all directed the right direction. And these meters, you had two little bulbs and rubber grommets stuck to the back of the meter. And I put the LEDs in with their legs long and bent them so that when you put the board on the back of the meter, the LEDs line up with the hole, so I didn't need the little rubber boots anymore because they were cremated anyway. I think it turned out very well, but it's been 2 nights, very tedious work trying to dress the wires and solder everything correctly and not hit the dial cord with the soldering iron, which I have done a few times. It makes you want to cry because then you've got to restring the dial.
Which is a lot of work.
It's a lot of
How
work.
much did you charge for this?
Let's be a couple of hundred.
Yeah.
I mean,
But whoever has this is probably real proud of it.
they're going to resell it, I'm sure. It's a good market right now. But yeah, some people are taking these and replacing all the capacitors, which I understand why. But that's a lot of capacitors and more work than I care to think about. I recap them if they need it. If the power supply, because of the heat, the power supply caps go out. I've had a run of Pioneer big receivers where the coupling caps and the tone circuits are not just drying out, they're going leaky or shorting, so they're passing DC. And the good thing is when you get a shorted cap in the tone circuit, you get some fabulous bass. But anytime you touch a switch or a tone control, because you're passing DC to the next stage, you get a spike and it makes the power amp shut down. And I've got one that the volume goes up and down on its own because the caps are bad. What's funny is if you turn on a light or something to make a pop for the radio to pick up, that spike makes that capacitor heal. And it'll work for a little while, and then it'll go down again. And you turn the volume up to a certain point, and it'll pop, and the volume will come back up. But it's dying caps. But
well, this is impressive.
you know, 40 years, they're bound to dry out.
How much does this weigh?
About 70 pounds.
Wow.
It is murder to move. But it's worth the effort to put the bulbs in it because it really looks
Well, did
nice.
this have that stereo sensor for the turntable?
No.
No.
Does not have one. No, those usually were a turntable or record changer you bought for that purpose. And the SQ decoder, or is it SQ or CD4? CD4 decoder is in the base of the turntable. Now, there were some receivers that had it built in, and you could buy a little box decoder. If you had a good turntable with a really light tone, these things track like 3/4 of a gram. So if you had a quality turntable with the right cartridge and stylus, you could get a decoder. But most of them you bought a special changer or record turntable with the decoder built in the bottom.
Yeah, well, I remember having one of those, and they'd say you'd test records, and the sounds would come out. It'd tell you it's coming out of the back front, back left.
Oh, it was neat.
Back right, then front right, then front left. And I guess it was sort of a precursor to the surround sound we have today.
Yeah. Of course, it was purely, it's pseudo-digital. This SQ surround sound synthesizer is a pseudo-digital device. It plays some games with phase shifting and adding and subtracting frequencies, kind of like Dolby does. The only thing good about these, if you've got one and you've got all 4 speakers hooked up to 4-channel mode, you put it in the synthesized surround sound mode and you get a pretty good rear channel sound. It's somewhat out of phase and shifted, but it gives you the illusion that you are surrounded.
However, if you had like a source of you know, well, it wouldn't work on this because usually it's 2 channels in, but no, they're not. They're multi-channels when they come out of the surround sound.
Well, you could put a surround sound into this if you wanted to. I used to do mobile disco, I'm sorry to say. Had a portable dance floor and speakers and amps, and I used an SQ synthesizer. I've still got one of them somewhere. Somebody made a good one. And I used it, and you diddle with the switches till you got a good effect. And I put the speakers on all 4 corners of the dance floor. So you really got a good effect if you're on the dance floor dancing. Better than just speakers blaring at you from one side of the room. But hauling 4 speakers and 4 amps in those days, it was a lot of trouble, but I was proud.
Well, this is exciting, Paul. That's another good tech talk.
I thought this was interesting.
It's beautiful.
The LEDs, you know, I can buy the LED replacement lamps for this and this, and they're like $5 a piece. But you can buy 50 white LEDs off the internet for $5. I thought, why don't I just make my own? You get your dropping resistor right, which in this case is 330 ohms. You're working with an 8-volt AC supply for the light bulbs. Well, LEDs don't care.
Yeah, because they convert it to DC.
They only work on the half cycle. So you lose a little brightness because you're running AC and not DC. And that means your dropping resistor has to be altered a little bit. But you get the right dropping resistor and get the right amount of brightness. And so most of these just soldered in, but these bulbs were plug-in, a proprietary bulb that nobody else ever made. And I utilized their little rubber mounts and just pulled those bulbs out and put my LEDs in, bent the legs back, put the resistor in, soldered the 2 resistor and LED together, and plugged them in, and I've got a really nice effect. Yeah, I'm real pleased with this.
There's your LEDs.
Yeah, I got 50 of them for $5. You can get them out of China or Taiwan, and I've had real good luck with that. But I found an American, it takes you 6 weeks. I found an American distributor in Philadelphia selling the same thing for the same price, same day shipping.
Wow.
Ordered them on Monday, had them on Friday. Man, you can't beat that.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, and I'm doing a lot of LED conversions. I mean, the Marantz that use the lamps that look like a fuse, well, they make those up, and they're surface mount, multi-element LEDs. I mean, a custom job. You couldn't do your own this pretty. But this required a custom touch, and I think it turned out pretty good.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah, now if I just figure out where that channel went, I'll be happy.
You'll fix it.
Yeah, when I started this one, I had all these switches. I had no sound at all. And I jiggled switches and finally got everything to work, so I cleaned them. I still got 1 channel missing, but I bet I dropped a wad of solder on that board back there, and I'll find my problem here in just a minute.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul. This was another great tech talk.
Yeah, I think this was kind of neat.
Yeah.